Hi, my name is Christina Zimmerman, and I'm the Program Manager of the Licensing and Recertification Program at WSDA. I'm sorry I can't be there with you today to present this information about the upcoming certification and training rule changes and how your pesticide license is impacted. I hope this video will help you understand this rule change and what you need to do to maintain your license. In this video, I'll provide an overview of what meeting the new requirements really means, the category changes coming up, and other C&T changes you need to know about. I'll also share resources available to you that will hopefully help you manage the C&T changes. First, we'll go over what competency standards are and why they matter for you and for keeping your pesticide license. What are competency standards? EPA's federal pesticide rules list specific topics that pesticide applicators need to know for each license category. They call these topics competency standards. These are topics we are required to cover in study manuals and test for on our exams. They represent the critical information applicators need to perform their duties safely, protecting themselves, others, and the environment. These standards look different for each category. For example, laws and safety competency standards includes topics like understanding pesticide labeling, recognizing symptoms of pesticide poisoning, and identifying risks of pesticide use to non-target organisms. For the weed control categories, competency standards include things like knowledge of the potential for phytotoxicity due to a wide variety of plants and pests that need to be controlled, and defining restricted entry intervals. So what does this mean for all of you? If you already hold a license, you studied manuals and passed exams that met standards in place before the federal rule change. But those standards don't fully align with the new topics, and we cannot grandfather in existing licenses. EPA's goal with these new federal rules is to ensure that every licensed applicator, whether newly certified or long-time licensees, meets the same level of competency. When we reviewed our manuals and exams, we found that the laws and safety, private applicator, and dealer manager exams and manuals had a few new competency standards that weren't covered. And since nearly all our licensees take one or more of these, we know that most of you will need to take some kind of action to meet the new requirements. There's only one exception to this: structural pest inspectors who conduct real estate transactions. If that's your license type, you're already covered and won't need to do anything. I'll walk you through what meeting these new standards will look like for most of you in a few slides. But first, let's talk about timing. With over 25,000 licensees in Washington State, we knew we couldn't ask everyone to attempt to meet these new requirements all at the same time. So we're rolling out these new requirements based on your recertification cycle. That means you will have until the end of your research cycle at the time the new rules go into effect to meet the new requirements. To help you visualize what the timing looks like, we've put together this table. On the left, find your current recertification cycle. On the right, you'll see the deadline for meeting the new competency standards. As an example, if your current cycle is 2024 through 2028, that's this one here, you will have until December 31st, 2028 to meet the new competency standard requirements. Most of you are already in the recertification cycle you'll be in when the new rules take effect January 1st, 2026. So your timeline is pretty straightforward. However, if your cycle ends this year, you fall into this top group here. You will just recertify as normal for next year, Then you will enter into a new research cycle of 2026 to 2030. You will have until December 31st, 2030 to meet the new requirements. Well, then what do you have to do to meet these new standards? We know that adding new requirements for licensees, especially now, can feel like a burden. Well, it is a burden. That's why we worked hard to create a path that's simple, flexible, and acceptable to EPA. It will not look the same for everyone, but we've tried to make it as straightforward as possible while still meeting what EPA is requiring of us as a state lead agency. For most licensees, our state manuals and exams were only missing a few topics. That means you'll just need to learn a handful of new things to get up to speed. For most of you, the easiest way to meet the new standards will be through a C&T specific course or quiz. The C&T course will focus only on the missing topics, nothing more. It's a single course that blends all the gaps across categories into one course. This C&T course will also count toward your regular recertification credit. It's short, just one credit, and our pesticide safety education partners at the Washington State University will be offering a one credit internet C&T course, a C&T course webinar, and in-person C&T courses in English and Spanish after January 1st, 2026. Other sponsors may offer it too, as long as they cover all the required topics. One question we hear a lot is, do I need to take more than one C&T course? The answer to that is no. It's just one course you take one time and you're done. Since you're here earning credits, we're guessing most of you will choose the course option. But if you'd rather not take another class, we've got a quiz option too. The C&T quiz will cover the same material as the course. It's open book and will provide all the information you need right in the quiz. Then we'll ask simple, clear questions based on that content. We are planning to offer the quiz online for free and easy to access. If you prefer to take it in person, you can do that at one of our regular paper-based testing sessions or at participating computer-based testing centers. Just remember that registration and a testing fee apply in those cases. Here's a visual showing the topics covered in the C&T course and quiz. We'll go over these in more detail shortly, but the key takeaway here is that this one course or quiz will cover all these missing standards for many different license types and categories. In a few cases, testing is required to meet the new standards. Some license categories were missing too many competency topics to cover in a single course. In other cases, EPA introduced entirely new sets of standards for certain types of pesticide applications, standards that aren't in current manuals or exams at all. As a result, certain licensees will need to pass new exams by the time their research cycle ends to continue specific types of work. I'll go over all of these in a few slides in more detail, but let's break down who this includes. Most licensees using space or non-soil fumigants will need to take the new exam. EPA has added an entirely new set of standards for this type of application. The only exception is for licensees with stored grain or fumigant categories. If you have either of these, you won't need to test if you complete the C&T course or quiz. Once you take that C&T course or quiz, you will be granted the space fumigation category. If you passed the soil fumigation exam before November 1st, 2012, You must take the updated version of the exam before your research cycle ends to continue making soil fumigation applications. If you're not sure when you took it, reach out to us. We can check your records. If you apply pesticides by helicopter, fixed-wing aircraft, or drone, you must pass the new aerial exam before your research cycle ends to continue making aerial applications. Public health. If you hold this category but don't work for or aren't contracted by a government agency to do public health pest control work, you will need a different relevant category. Some categories will now only allow general use pesticide applications. These are limited specialty categories. If you're using restricted use pesticides or RUPs under any of these, you'll need to get a category based on your specific work. These categories include cooling tower, interior plantscaping, post-harvest treatment of fruits and vegetables, sewer root control, structural and turf demossing, and stump treatment. The last group are the retired categories. Some licensees still hold older, discontinued categories that we no longer track or have any record of. These were canceled 15 or more years ago. To continue making applications under these uses, you'll need to update to the correct current category. We'll show a full list of these retired categories later, but most common ones we see are statewide, tree fruit, and golf course superintendent. So let's get into the category changes and how they are affected by those competency standard changes we just talked about. We are rearranging some categories in a way that we think makes more sense for our licensees, adding some new categories required by EPA, and eliminating some that will no longer be needed or do not meet federal standards. The aerial pest control and space fumigation categories were two of the brand new ones that EPA created. Along with them came a whole new set of topics we had to make sure were covered. Demonstration and research is the third category we are adding, and this one will just affect folks with a demonstration and research license type. I'll go over these one by one. Aerial pest control is a new method-specific category EPA established. After the rule change, current licensees who apply pesticides aerially must add this category by the end of their recertification cycle. This includes applications by helicopter, fixed-wing plane, or drone, and it affects all license types. To get this new category, you will need to take and pass the new aerial pest control exam by the end of your research cycle to continue making aerial applications. You will need to have shown pest and site-specific competency as well. So if you have private applicator, that covers those topics. But if you have another license type, you'll need to make sure you have the relevant category. For example, you would need both the weed control and aerial categories to make drone herbicide applications. Our state will be using the National Aerial Manual that many other states are using as well. The other new EPA category is non-soil fumigation, or as we're calling it in Washington State, space fumigation. Right now, space fumigation topics are included in all of these different categories. However, the exams and manuals for these cover very few to none of the required topics EPA set in their rule. Moving forward, we must remove any existing space fumigation topics from these categories to accommodate the new space fumigation category. This way, the long list of competency standards EPA is requiring does not have to be included in the manual and exams for these listed here. Those who don't do fumigations won't need to study them. So if you have private applicator, PCO general, PCO structural, pest animal, sulfur dioxide fumigation, or sewer root control, and you're using fumigants under these categories, you will need to add space fumigation before the end of your research cycle to continue those applications. Like the aerial pest category, you'll still need to show knowledge in the site and pest specific information. So this will be in addition to your current private applicator license or other category, like PCO structural or vertebrate pest control. If you do conduct space fumigation, most of you probably already have the site or pest specific category you need to continue. I saw that a few licensees from last year's attendance have these two categories, stored grain and fumigant, so I wanted to make sure to cover this. If you're not a private applicator and have stored grain or fumigant categories on your license now, those manuals and exams were just missing a couple topics to meet EPA's new standards. We were able to include those in the C&T course and quiz so that you can just take the course or quiz and get the space fumigation added to your license without retesting. The third new category is demonstration and research. Some of you may recognize this as a license type. Anyone with the demo and research license will have to add this category once the new rules are in effect. They will be able to do this by just taking the C&T course or quiz. Like the aerial and space fumigation categories, the licensee must have the demo and research category in addition to each pest control category in which they are doing research. In addition to adding brand new categories, we're also merging some of our existing categories in a way that makes more sense. If you have an insect and disease or a weed control category, this will be relevant for you. So if you have ag insect and disease or ornamental insect and disease now, after taking that C&T course or quiz, you'll get the general insect and disease control category that allows you to do work in agricultural and ornamental situations. Similarly, if you have ag weed, ornamental weed, or rights-of-way weed control now, after taking the C&T course or quiz, you will get the general weed control category and be able to do weed control in all of those sites. The limited specialty category potato sprout inhibitor covers post-harvest treatment but is specific to potatoes. The post-harvest treatment of fruits and vegetables category covers other commodities. These will be merged so that anyone with potato sprout inhibitor will automatically get the post-harvest category. They will be able to make post-harvest treatments to other commodities in addition to potatoes. This will be one of those limited specialty categories though, so remember, use is limited to general use pesticides. Let's take a look at private applicator. The private applicator license types were just missing a few topics from the updated federal rule. Everyone that has passed the private applicator exam, including limited private applicator and rancher private applicator, will need to take the C&T course or quiz to cover those. But remember, you will not be able to do aerial or space fumigation applications with just private applicator. You'll need to take the new exams to add that use before the end of your research cycle. So let's get into the miscellaneous category changes. Public health covers a wide range of uses. The new federal rule states that the public health category is only valid if you're working for a government-sponsored program for the control of a public health or medical pest. This includes contractors hired by a public agency to do this work. So for those with this category now, if you're working for a government agency or other government-sponsored public health program, the category will continue to be valid for you. If not, you must get whatever category is specific to the kind of work you're doing. Next, we're reorganizing our categories for those doing vertebrate pest control. If you're a private applicator, that license type covers you to control vertebrate pests without any additional categories, so you can ignore this. For simplicity's sake, if you have pest animal or PCO general already, after you take the C&T course or quiz, you will get the renamed vertebrate pest control category. Vertebrate pest will include the control of outdoor vertebrate pests in agricultural and non-ag situations. As a reminder, if you use fumigants to fumigate rodent burrows, for example, you'll have to get that category as well by the end of your research cycle. The next area of change is to categories that we call limited specialty, which are not outlined in our rules. EPA has said that these categories can only allow general use pesticide applications. These are cooling tower, interior plantscaping, post-harvest treatment of fruits and vegetables, structural and turf demossing, stump treatment, and sewer root control. If you have any of these categories and you are only using general use pesticides, you don't need to do anything else. You'll take the C&T course or quiz to meet your laws and safety competency standards, and that's it. If you use restricted use pesticides, however, with any of these, you will need to get the category specific to your use by the end of your research cycle. For example, if you use stump treatment and you use restricted use pesticides, you will need to take and pass the new weed control exam. If you are in this situation and you're not sure about which category to get, I'll show you how to find that in a few slides. I mentioned retired categories earlier on the Who Needs to Test slide. These are categories that were removed from state rules 15 plus years ago, but never dropped off people's licenses. If you have any of these categories on your license and you don't have anything else specific to your work, you will need to add the relevant category by the end of your research cycle to continue doing that same work. These retired categories will disappear from your license at the end of your research cycle. If you have a retired category and aren't sure what category you'll need, please contact us and we can help. I know just covering the category changes is a lot, so let's take a break from this PowerPoint presentation and listing out all the changes. I would like to share resources on how to figure out what you need to do and use an example license to go through those resources. I will be going through this on the WSDA website. You can use this QR code to navigate to the pages I'll be moving through. If you're not a fan of QR codes, you can also go to our agency website at agr.wa.gov and search for certification and training. I'll pause for a little bit before moving to the web pages to give people a chance to navigate to that page. First, let's go to the main C&T rule change webpage, which is where that QR code goes to. At the top here, you'll notice this Join Our Newsletter banner. If you enter your email address here, you can sign up for pesticide licensing specific Gov delivery newsletters from our program. Here, you'll find a button that goes to the How to Comply with C&T pages, and then another button that will take you to recorded webinars. Let's try that one first. So let's click the View the C&T Webinars button. We published webinar recordings covering all the C&T requirements and changes. These are available in English and Spanish, as you can see with the button at the top. Let's go down to the topics here. Each topic is separated into individual short videos so you can watch just what's relevant for you. Let's go back up here. We also arrange them into playlists so you can choose a playlist and listen to only information that relates to your license type or situation. Let's click on one of the playlists. So let's try pest control operators. This brings up a playlist of videos that might be relevant for pest control operators or pest management professionals. You can still skip around if you like. Not all pest control operators might want to look at public health control, or you can play them all in sequence. Okay, so let's go back to the main C&T page. And now let's click on the How to Comply Charts button. We created How to Comply Charts. This is the most straightforward way to find out exactly what you need to do to maintain your specific license and categories. We have a chart based on license type and another based on category. You'll want to pull up your license and refer to both these charts to see what you need to do. Let's go to the requirements by license type chart first. You'll see again view this page in Spanish up here. All of our C&T pages are available in both English and Spanish. This has each license type broken out. Find your license type and see what you need to do to maintain your license. Let's navigate down to Public Operator. Okay, to keep your license, you will just need to take the C&T course or quiz. If you use space fumigants, you will have to take the space fumigation exam. And for any aerial applications, including by drone, you will have to take the aerial exam. So let's go to the requirements by category page. You can get to it from within each of these tables here, or you can go to the top of the page. It is included up here as well. I am just going to back out of this page to the main How to Comply page. Let's click on Category Requirements. This page has every category we talked about, including the retired ones and the ones not impacted by C&T. Look at each category on your license, and this chart will tell you if you need to test, take the C&T course or quiz, and what that will do for you. Or maybe you don't need to do anything at all. So let's go to right-of-way weed control. Just going to use the shortcut there. Okay. You'll see that if you want to continue making weed control applications, you just need to take the C&T course or quiz. After you take that C&T course or quiz, you will be getting the merged or general weed control category. This will allow you to control weeds in ag and ornamental sites as well as right of way. This does break out aerial and reminds folks that if they need to make aerial applications for weed control, they will have to pass the new aerial pest control exam. Okay, now let's go down to stump treatment. Remember, this is a limited specialty category. So if you only use general use pesticides with this category, you don't need to do anything. Don't forget, you do have to take the C&T course or quiz for your laws and safety competencies for your license type. If you need to use restricted use pesticides for stump treatment, you will need to pass the new weed control exam because EPA has stated that our limited specialty categories like stump treatment do not meet federal standards for the use of restricted use pesticides. Again, if you make aerial applications, you will need to pass the new aerial exam to add that category. Now we're going to look at an example license. Okay, so I'm going to make this smaller. I'm going to navigate all the way back up here. Sorry if that hurt your eyes. And let's go back to this main page here. Okay. On our license search page, I looked up David Bryson's license. You may recognize that name. David is an area manager for our compliance program, and he works out of the Wenatchee office. Let's take a look at what David will have to do to meet the new requirements. Okay, so David currently has the private applicator, public operator, and public pest control consultant license types. He also has the categories ag, insect, and disease, agricultural weed, PCO general, pest animal, and soil fumigation RMM. If we go to the requirements by license type page first, okay, let's look up private applicator. I'm going to use this shortcut here. As you can see, he will need to take the C&T course or quiz. Most of the license types will state this. There is also mention of the space fumigation and aerial categories and taking those exams if needed. You'll notice, let's go down to public operator. Public operator and the public pest control consultant license types say the same thing as private applicator. Okay, so now we know we can skip to the requirements by category. So he has 5 categories. So let's see what's in store for David. For ag, insect, and disease, David will have to take the C&T course or quiz, and he will get the new general insect and disease category. If he needs to use space fumigants or apply pesticides aerially, he will have to add that exam. Let's go down to ag weed. Again, David will need to take the C&T course or quiz, and he will get the new general weed control category. Okay, again, the mention of space fumigants and aerial applications. Now let's go down to PCO general. I don't want to scroll down and hurt everyone's eyes, so I'm just going to use this shortcut up here, PCO general. If David wants to control outdoor vertebrate pests, he'll take the C&T course or quiz and we'll give him vertebrate pest control. PCO general will remain on his license for the other uses. And then here's another reminder about space fumigation and aerial pest control. Now let's go down to pest animal. Once David takes that C&T course or quiz, this also grants him vertebrate pest control like PCO general. However, in this case, pest animal will drop off his license. And here's another reminder about space fumigation. Lastly is soil fumigation, RMM. Okay, because he took the exam after November 1st, 2012, he was granted soil fumigation with this RMM identifier at the end. All he will need to do is take the C&T course or quiz, and it will fill in any missing gaps and maintain soil fumigation on his license. Now let's go to the C&T course or quiz page to review what that entails. So we can get to it by either backing out of this page here or just using the shortcut from within the table. I'm going to maximize this screen. Okay. On this page, we summarize what the C&T credit course and the quiz are, when they will be available, and in what formats. So let's look at the C&T course, which is in this column here. Again, this is one course covering a bunch of different topics that are missing from our manuals and exams. It will count toward your regular recertification credit. So the yes here. You will be able to search for this course on our recertification course page. Make sure to select C&T course in the topics and change the calendar year of your search to 2026. WSU has some in there already for next year for their on-site recertification events. They will also have this type of credit available in internet on demand and live webinar options. The cost for a C&T credit course will be dependent on the course sponsor. For the C&T quiz in this column here, again, this is one quiz covering all these different topics. It will not count toward your regular recertification credit. This quiz is administered by WSDA, and we'll be offering it in 3 different ways. We will offer it online for free and easy to access. You can also take it at one of our paper-based testing sites. And of course, we will allow it to be offered through our computer-based testing vendor, but that is quite costly as it is our vendor's fees. When you scroll down a bit on this page, this is something I want to make sure to show you. You'll find a summary of what the C&T course or quiz will do for you and your license. As a reminder, it is just the one C&T course or quiz you will need to take to meet this requirement. It covers a wide range of topics, not all of which may be relevant for you, but it is required for you to complete the entire course or quiz, whether or not the topics are relevant for you. Right below that, I just have another copy of the recertification cycle chart to remind folks when they need to meet the requirements by. So let's go back up here and return to the main C&T page. If you are an employer or distributor or industry group, we also have this C&T one pager available on this page. If you click here, it will take you to this one-page document, which is available in Spanish as well. It just talks about what's happening, why it's happening, and what you need to do. It includes this QR code to our C&T resources page. Please feel free to print these out and share these, email these to whoever you feel needs them. And that's it for C&T resources. So let's go back to the PowerPoint. So let's just cover a few other requirements that you'll need to know about. Direct supervision of non-certified applicators using federal restricted use pesticides. Before we get too far on direct supervision, I want to make sure we're on the same page about what direct supervision even is. Our state has an allowance for unlicensed people to use pesticides as long as they're being directly supervised by someone who is licensed to do the work. What direct supervision looks like is different for different groups, as you can see from this table here. Be aware as well that there are pesticide products that don't allow unlicensed applicators to apply them. So make sure if you're supervising someone without a license that you're checking the label first. Like I mentioned, EPA made updates to requirements for direct supervision that we will have to meet in our state. Right now in Washington state, there is no minimum age for unlicensed applicators who are using pesticides under another licensee's supervision. EPA established a minimum age of 18 for non-certified applicators applying RUPs under the direct supervision of a certified applicator. There is one exception to this minimum age requirement. The non-certified applicator may be 16 or 17 if they are applying under the direct supervision of a private applicator who is an immediate family member. The application is not made aerially, and the RUP cannot be a fumigant. There are also new requirements for training and resources provided for unlicensed applicators. The updates I'll be sharing are relevant to those using federal RUPs only. Remember that use means not just those applying federal RUPs, but also those transporting open containers, cleaning equipment, disposing of wash waters, and mixing and loading. And those of you who are already meeting worker protection standards may be thinking, hey, these things already exist. And you're right. So really this requirement is expanding those training requirements out as well. There are new training requirements for unlicensed applicators using federal RUPs, new requirements for the licensed person supervising them, and there are some different options for how that training requirement can be met that we'll talk about. If you're a licensed or certified applicator supervising an unlicensed person applying federal RUPs, there are some important new responsibilities that you need to know about. All of these requirements are outlined on the website I showed you, but let's go over these in a bit. These changes focus on making sure the people you supervise have the right information, equipment, and support to apply RUPs safely and legally. Here's what you'll need to do. So explain the laws and rules. Make sure the person you're supervising understands all relevant laws and regulations, including federal, state, and tribal rules that may apply to that pesticide application. Provide clear instructions. Share any specific directions to the product or the site of application in a manner they can understand. Share the product label. Give the unlicensed applicator a readable copy of the pesticide label for use throughout the application. Ensure proper equipment and training. Make sure they have clean, working, personal protective equipment and pesticide application tools. You're also responsible for training them on how to use this equipment and providing refresher training at least once every 12 months after the first application. Be immediately available. You must be able to communicate with the person you're supervising at all times during the application. Verify age of the unlicensed applicator. Anyone you supervise who is applying federal RUPs must be at least 18 years old to meet the new minimum age rule. If you're using federal RUPs, there are new training requirements you need to be aware of. These used to mainly apply to agricultural workers under the Worker Protection Standard, or WPS, but now they extend to all unlicensed applicators regardless of industry. There are a few options to meeting this training requirement. First, the unlicensed person may actually have a pesticide license, but just not in the category for the application they're making. So someone with that category has to supervise them. Just having a license actually meets the training requirement under this part of the rule, so they wouldn't need to do any additional training in this situation. If they've taken a handler training or train the trainer course, that would also meet the new training requirement. Those are programs already in place to help agricultural workers meet WPS requirements. If the unlicensed person doesn't have a license and hasn't gone through a handler or train the trainer program, they will need to complete a training program that meets all the new federal requirements. There are quite a few specific topics the unlicensed person needs to be trained in. If you have people in this situation, unlicensed applicators using federal RUPs, you can review our webpage I showed you on those requirements or contact us. There are several resources that can help you. The supervising licensed applicator is responsible for ensuring that anyone they supervise has met these training requirements, and they must keep records verifying that training was completed. The next area of change is to dealer record-keeping requirements. There are a few new pieces of information pesticide dealers will need to record for non-home and garden pesticide sales. There were a few dealer managers that attended this conference last year, so I'll quickly go over this one. Prior to the new C&T rule, there were no specific record-keeping requirements for dealers at the federal level. So when they imposed the new rule, Washington was already ahead of most states. There are a few changes though, as the federal rule goes beyond what Washington has in place now. We will have to add 3 new required pieces of information. Pesticide dealers will now need to record the expiration date of your license. They also need to note categories on your license that are relevant to the product you're purchasing. So if you have 4 different categories on your license now and you go in to purchase a weed killer, for example, they only need to write that one category down, weed control. The last item is related to what we call emergency exemption or special local need registrations. Sometimes pesticides are given exceptions to be used in additional sites not allowed on the original label or on new crops, for example, when there is an urgent need. They are issued special registrations, and if that is what allowed the pesticide purchase, the dealer needs to make note of that. I want to end by quickly circling back to those category changes we talked about at the beginning. You heard that we added some brand new categories. We are merging some existing categories. There are some categories that are going away. We are changing limited specialty categories to only allow for general use pesticide applications. And then some other miscellaneous changes as well. The fumigation getting moved out of other categories, public health being allowed for government-sponsored programs only, vertebrate pest control getting merged for all sites, and our retired categories are going away. And if you have other categories on your license that you didn't hear me talk about today, that means there is no change. So for example, if you have aquatic pest control, there's no change there, so that's going to look exactly the same after the rule change. I know that was a lot of information. I have the QR code up here that goes to our C&T Resources webpage that I walked through with you. I also put the QR code to our GovDelivery subscription that's specific to pesticide licensing. So this is our pesticide licensing newsletter. We'll send updates on any rule, policy, or statute changes, as well as renewal reminders. Please contact us if you need more information or are confused at all about what you need to do. There are several of us in the program that have access to this shared email mailbox, pest license updates at agr.wa.gov, and we can help you. Or you can just call us at our licensing line at 877-301-4555. Thank you for your time today.